What is up? Hopefully you guys are having a wonderful day. Back with some more Resident Evil 5 gameplay for you. And today I have a video in which, I'll be honest, I wasn't planning on making it, but as I was scrolling around online, I saw a person reference an article that was written a year ago, and it just kind of made me laugh. Now I remember seeing this article. I don't think I read it. I just saw the title and kind of laughed at it. But also because I remember a year ago I did an article talking about this same thing I'm going to be talking about today. Just a different person was writing it, basically claiming that Resident Evil 5, if they ever were to remake it, well, they're going to have to drastically change it because Resident Evil 5 is very racist. Then wondering if it should even get a remake because it is so racist. Now, I think that's complete lunacy and bollocks, but honestly, considering it's coming from, well, a site that I like to call the AntiGamer, and coming from a writer who is a returning favorite on this channel, because I've talked about him more than one time in terms of an article they've written. I shouldn't even be that surprised, but I figure, hey, we can laugh at it, have some fun with it, and just, well, who knows? Maybe they have a point. Maybe they honestly have a point. Maybe I'm the one that needs to change my views and ways and what games I personally play and how I enjoy to play them. So without further ado, let's get into why they believe Resident Evil 5 does not deserve a remake because it is apparently racist. And I'll leave a link in the description if you want to check out the article for yourself. Without further ado, let's go. So basically they go on to say that Resident Evil 5, despite its legacy, it's always going to be tarnished because of its racism without the game, and that it has a big blip on the radar, and that it's something that's going to be like it's a misstep basically in Capcom. Now, the funny part is you'll see multiple times in the article, they kind of keep pinning that whole point, oh, it's a misstep, they really backfired, and there was so much controversy and backlash. Think about that logically. If you never played Resident Evil 5, you don't know anything about it, and you heard them talking about it was a big backlash, a misstep, you would think that, oh, it must have been not very successful, right? Depending on how you feel about the game is irrelevant. The game, reviewed pretty decently. Not the greatest Resident Evil, but nowhere near the worst. But in terms of its sales, it's one of the most successful, if not the most successful Resident Evil. I always get this confused, but it's either the most sold Resident Evil on a single console or the most sold on all the console ports combined. It's one of those two. I believe that Resident Evil 2 Remake is eventually going to surpass it. The point I'm trying to make here, it's one of the most successful Resident Evil titles financially, so it was a huge success. So the whole concept, oh, it was a big misfire, is completely false. But once again, it's people's feelings get in the way of facts, and that's the thing they don't want. They want feelings, not facts. But let's move on. So they try to pan out a whole picture of putting themselves in their shoes of how you try to understand how they feel. And always, and this next thing I'm going to quote, I just like this whole paragraph. But here you go, and I quote: "I was still in primary school when Resident Evil 5 first unveiled. So my understanding of racism and the historic role it plays in global social political culture was fairly lacking. I just wanted to murder zombies with my friends. It didn't matter what color they were or what country I happened to be in. The affection must be cleansed, and not putting my upgraded shotgun to use would be a tragic waste. But even back then, there was something uneasy about how the game depicted Africa and the awkward marketing, eager to focus on a white man waltzing into an impoverished town only to murder its inhabitants." And the end of quote. But here's my thing, okay? I just always like it when these people, it's like, because they know this is going to come back and get them in the end. There's going to be someone close, well, hey, you keep talking about how you're all against this, but you're one of those people that played it back in the day too, so what was the problem? And they always want to act like, well, I didn't know. I wasn't educated. I was ignorant back then, because God forbid you actually play a game and just try to enjoy a game for being a game. But nonetheless, another thing I noticed, and it's just me being a little nitpicky here, but I like how they said I just wanted to murder some zombies with my friends. Resident Evil 5, maybe in Lost in Nightmare you could kind of say there was kind of zombies, but in the main campaign Resident Evil 5, there are no zombies. There wasn't zombies in Resident Evil 4, and there wasn't zombies in Resident Evil 5, so it's a little nitpick, but you know what they say, the small details, they do matter. But it all comes back to the whole point of this whole thing, as if, understanding racism and historic role it plays in culture matters, and people don't want to play a Resident Evil game. The whole point they can't understand is the fact that, God forbid, you have a white protagonist shoot a black person. You just can't have that. If it was the other way around, it wouldn't be a problem. They wouldn't be making this. They'd probably be, that's pretty much what they want. The article I covered last year was making a big deal of this sequence with this white woman, and basically was trying to make the point of, oh, the fact that they have these black men forcing themselves and basically infecting her proves that they want to make black people vilified and white people as victims. It's like, no, bud, no. What they basically want is they want it the opposite way around. That's what they love. I mean, look at me, for example. I don't care what you look like. If you're going to attack me, I'm going to shoot you in a game. It's very simple. When have we ever questioned this before in a game? I mean, seriously, did I question every Goomba I stomped on in Mario? No, I just stomped on them and moved on, just like I stomped him and just like I stomped her in there if I had the chance to. Like, I don't care who you are. You're an enemy, I'm going to shoot you. It's that simple. That's the point. I'm not thinking about this stuff that deep. It's not that big of a study. I think it says more about you in real life than it does about us as gamers, but nonetheless, moving on, no surprise there. Their next point they try to bring up and talk about is the fact that, the game is set in Africa, so obviously you're going to have to shoot African people at some point. That's not the problem. The problem is the fact that it was all bad when we get to the marshlands, this area you see right here. Now, their whole thing that they get anal, and I've heard people in the past talk about this, they think it's very racist depiction of how you have people depicted the way they are in this sequence here, where they're basically tribal people dressed in unique outfits, also throwing spears and arrows and stuff like that. And people have always seemingly, not a lot, but I've heard a few people complain and argue about that. This writer takes it a step further, basically saying, like, why are people depicted like this? Why can't we have people in business outfits, and why can't we show more, I guess, like, African society in a more, I guess, richer environment? Or why can't we just have, like, people dressed more sophisticated? And here's my problem with this whole thing, okay? I would understand maybe this argument if we were in the middle of the city. Because they make an argument that this whole depicts, African very offensively, as if this doesn't exist in real life. Like, you'll never see any type of environment like this in Africa. But you and I both know the obvious, okay? In real life, not in a video game, in real life, there are tons of native societies that basically are disconnected from the real world. They have no connection with the real world. In fact, they're so disconnected, they will attack you on sight. I mean, I've heard stories of people honestly being murdered because they ventured into one of these societies because these people don't know anyone outside in the real world. I mean, this is reality. This is something in real life. So this isn't something just made purposely to be offensive. This is how it is in real life. Now, we get to my next problem. Okay, if you want to say you can't understand these people dressing like this, I can understand it if maybe we were in, I don't know, a big city area. But we're not. We're in the damn marshlands. Where are people in this type of environment going to be dressed in like a business suit? And the funny part is, there are people that are dressed in some type of, unique outfits when you get to like the oil fields because they work there. But people living out in the native wilderness in Africa, is that such a shock and surprise? Has that never happened before? Clearly people are living off the land or using their environments, and the whole thing I don't get is the whole spears and stuff. What else are they supposed to use? Are they going to use guns? Are they going to use RPGs or something like that? No, they're going to use the items that are native to their area. Not going to use, it's not like they're venturing into like big cities and stuff and going to the militiamen. There's a few that at times later on in the game do pick up weapons, but most of them are attached to the organization they're working for. But these people, they're just random people who live out in the wilderness. What is the problem here? Like, what did you expect them to be living out here in the marshlands? And this is how I like I like this segment of the game. I like the environment. I like driving on this boat. I like the setting. I still get tense up with the whole crocodile sequence, as you'll see coming up soon. But the point is, what did you expect it to be? Like, as I said, you may have an argument if we're in the big city. And as at the beginning of this game, you're kind of in like, a town, a little bit of a decent sized town. You have people dressed up, accordingly to the environment they're in. But out here in the marshlands, people aren't dressed weird to me. In fact, if anyone's weirdly dressed, it's probably Chris and Sheva, because they're probably looking at them like, why are these people here? A sequence. Not to mention, they are infected, so who knows what they're thinking in their brain. But nonetheless, it doesn't change the point. What did you want them to be? Like, seriously, how is this a problem? Oh, but it's a problem because, hey, white man shooting him. But, it's always a bad thing. But nonetheless, this whole marshland thing has never made sense to me. Like, for people to honestly get mad at how they look, like, what did you want them to look like? Want them to dress up in like a tuxedo and be shooting, I don't know, silenced pistols at you or something like that? Like, I don't know what in the world is the big deal with this, but nonetheless, moving on. They go on to say that, hey, I'm not talking about potentially removing abandon Africa completely. That's basically what you are saying. Not unless you get your fantasy of having all the whites getting shot at, but other than that, no. That's exactly what you're saying. They make a claim that, hey, it's different for this game because in 4 it was campy and removed from reality, but 5 is grounded and more realistic. Now, guys, I'm not going to argue and ask which game is more goofier than the other, but can you look at me in a straight eye and tell me how in the hell Resident Evil 5 you would ever resort to the words grounded and realistic at all when you have sequences like this?
The one and only.
And that's not even to mention the obvious with the boulder punching and the Matrix moving Wesker. But the point is, and by the way, Jill snapping people's necks with thighs will never not be iconic. What is this argument? It doesn't make any sense, and then it's going to make even less sense coming up because, once again, I'm just going to basically say, so they make this whole thing about it's weirdly executed in terms of how you go from different areas in the game. Which, going to different areas has always been something in Resident Evil. You have different areas. It's not going to be the same type of area the entirety of the game. Every Resident Evil is like this. They go on to say that, like, the whole execution and how it visually looks is a problem in terms of how you go into the temples and pillage for the treasures or how you fight the people in the segments where they have the guns. And I'm just sitting there thinking, like, dude, like, what? Like, once again, I like the temples. I like pillaging for treasures. It's something you do in a game to basically, get currency to increase your weapons and make them do more damage. How is this a bad thing? And then the soldiers with guns, they talk about how, generic gun fights. Granted, I'm not the biggest fan of the gun segments too much, but once again, how is that a stereotype? Like, what did you want it to be? Like, that's the thing I keep asking myself. Like, what would have been different? Like, what did you want it to be? It was a segment you had to play through. You had to play through the game. How is that anything to do with being a stereotype? How is that being racist in any way? Like, it's just like... But the thing that gets to me the most, and this is the thing I don't understand, because I like to be fair to everything. So, if Resident Evil 5 is so racist because, white man shooting black people, and it's depictions of certain types of people and certain areas and stuff like that, if that's so bad, okay, then why do I never hear complaints about the other Resident Evil games that happen to do certain things like this? Oh, where are the complaints with Resident Evil 4 or 4 Remake? Either one, where I'm going to basically Spain and I'm basically, a white man shooting up the Hispanic people. Where is the whole outrage about that? Where's that? I've never heard that before. And, as I said, I'm going to kind of like a backwater village. I'm just basically delivering them. I'm basically doing whatever I want. I'm pillaging their village. I'm taking their supplies. Where's the complaints about that? Oh, that's right. You never do. You never hear about that. That one's always come widely, quiet. Where was the whole outrage with that thing? Is it just implying that, hey, it can only be racist if it's whites against blacks or something like that? What sense does this make? Or, here's another one. How about when white man goes to China in Resident Evil 6 and is basically just doing what he wants to do in the town of China, blowing it halfway up, fighting, infected Chinese? Like, where's the whole, problem there? Not to mention, you have so many people, I'm surprised no one's complaining, hey, why isn't the people in those news reports, why aren't they speaking, fluent Chinese, and why are they speaking English? Like, where's the whole outrage about that? Because someone's probably going to do that eventually, but, yeah, where's the outrage there? You remember when Chris was just pushing innocent civilians away to get them out of his, thing? You remember this? Like, or the BSA was just throwing innocent civilians aside, like, or shooting the Chinese? Like, where's the outrage for these games, huh? Or where's the outrage when Resident Evil 7 depicted a whole family? This, unfortunately, was innocent, but encountered Evelyn, and then you basically had to fight this family in a backwater marsh area in the United States in, Resident Evil 7. Where was the outrage with that? Oh, I forgot, because it's not racist. Apparently, it's only racist if it's, certain elements. And usually when it's blacks, that's always got to be racist, especially when you got male character, white male, as the protagonist. So I should have known, but the problem with this whole article, as well as this whole argument, is it doesn't make any logical sense when you add it up to other examples, as well as things that actually matter in a Resident Evil game. Ironically enough, and you can check out the link in the description if you want to check this video series I just started a couple days ago, I'm making a list of things I believe botched Resident Evil 5, the game, in terms of its story and characters. Not once in any of my talking did I talk about racial stereotypes, black people, white people, culture. I was talking about the things that people actually care in a Resident Evil game, the reason why they're playing a Resident Evil game. Nope, these people act like that we bought Resident Evil 5 so we can learn about African culture, so we can learn about, ethnic stereotypes or something like that. No, we play the game to basically be in a franchise we love, maybe even have that cooperative experience. Because the one thing they talk about in this article, and it's the irony, it's the one thing they could have made an article talking about that would have made sense, was the whole thing with Sheva. If you remember, when Resident Evil 5 first debuted, there was no Sheva. It was just Chris, and he was going to be by himself. But then they added Sheva. Some people were thinking, hey, this may have been because they didn't want to get the whole offensive white man only, so they added Sheva there. And maybe there's a little bit of truth behind that. But honestly, the bigger story there was, going from being single player only to having a cooperative option. If you wanted to make an article talking about, hey, cooperative killed the horror sense in survival horror games and made it too actiony, I'm not going to argue against it. That would have been an article you could have wrote. I could have understood that. I can understand both ways in that. But I could at least understand you writing it. This doesn't make any sense whatsoever. You're just getting mad for the sake of getting mad, just to profit off of that, and just spread so much misinformation and rile people up. And basically, I think it says more about you and your insecurities than it does about actual us gamers, because that's the thing these articles hate. The writers hate about actual gamers. Actual gamers just want to play fun, entertaining games. They're not thinking so in-depth with things that don't make any sense. They don't look at every game as simple as, oh, white man shooting black man. Because, damn it, if it was the other way around, nobody would say a daggone word. They'd probably be praising it, saying, oh, it's so brave and great. Because they don't care about the gameplay and any of that. It is talk about the things that no honest Resident Evil fan would ever even give two craps about in the first place. Resident Evil 5 has its problems, but this is not one of those problems, okay? Honest people who actually play Resident Evil 5, actually care about Resident Evil and care about the franchise and like the game, there are other things that are way more pressing than something that is not a problem at all. It's just another game. Because as I said before, if the roles were reversed, these people wouldn't be writing this stuff. They'd probably be praising it. But nonetheless, as I always like to say, that is my opinion. I want to hear your guys' opinion. Do you think Resident Evil 5 Remake shouldn't happen because it's racist? Or do you think this article is just full of crap? When you first played it, did you feel so put off and offended by it? Or did you just play it like any other normal gamer would? Let me know down in the comment section down below. But thank you very much for watching. Hopefully you guys did enjoy this video. And hopefully I can see you guys back on the next one. Thanks, and I'll see you all later. Peace.